Children disaster management occupies an important place in India's policy framework as poor people are the ones who are most affected by a disaster, and in India the prominent population is of the poor people or the ones who stay in the villages. Though urbanization has taken place a lot, but then still the population of the villages or the rural areas are more, and we need to educate them better and give emphasis on educating them as far as the safety measures of the uh, disasters are concerned. Now, on the central level, NDMA, that is the National Disaster Management Authority, runs various programs for mitigation and responsiveness for specific situations. These include the National Cyclone Risk Management Project, School Safety Project, Decision Support System, and others. And mainly it concentrates on four factors, that is the disaster management cycle. It has four stages: risk reduction, readiness, response, and recovery. Reduction is culmination of a three-part process that includes risk identification and assessment. So while not only the center but also state governments perform their duties during disaster with the only intention of minimizing the adverse impact on human infrastructure, environment, economy, etc. So Indian government has constituted a national disaster response team which is stationed in every state, and they are the ones who respond first in such situation. Not even, I would say that not even the state but the local governments are the ones who respond first in any kinds of disaster. Now, on the level of state and the territory governments, regulatory arrangements that protect life, property, and the environment, ensuring the provision of appropriate disaster awareness, education, and warning systems, primary responsibility for providing adequately prepared and capable emergency services directly to the community. Then provide leadership and collaborate with other levels of government in a disaster research, information management, and policy making. Mobilize resources when state and territory response resources are insufficient. Provide national support for disaster relief and community recovery. So these were regarding the state government's uh, work. Now, local government responsibility is ensuring that all local disaster planning and preparedness measures are taken, because they are the ones who are informed about a disaster and they are the ones to take action in case of a disaster. So therefore their role becomes very, very important. Then the second is routinely conducting disaster risk assessment on their communities. That means giving them proper education about it, proper ideas about it, how to deal with the disaster. Then ensuring that there are adequate local disaster response resources, including volunteer resources, that is the NGOs, here play an important role. Then reduction hazards through land use planning, public education and awareness, providing local disaster warnings, representing community interest in disaster management to other levels of the government, that is the higher levels of the government. Now this is a chart made, you can say a flow chart on natural disaster management. In first category I would put mitigation, then preparedness, response, then the policy development, relief and recovery for the long-term relief, to make rehabilitation centers, then the short-term relief measures that are concurrent with the response, that is emergency shelter, food, funds, then post-disaster assessment and mitigation, addressing risk revealed by the disaster, then the general disaster research. So these are the various areas in which the government has to take care and start working towards it, and fulfill the responsibility which it has to work against a disaster. Why is the role of people important in the disaster prone areas? Because at most times when a disaster occurs, the first people to cope with it are the victims themselves. Therefore, all citizens should go through instructions in preparedness for all different disasters and then follow through on being prepared. Follow through on being prepared. They should know the country disaster plan and whom to turn into an emergency. They should pay attention to emergency warnings and stay aware of the developing situations. So in this picture you can see that the people themselves are taking precaution against a contagious disease or any virus which is in the air. So to cope with it, the victims themselves, they have to often without any benefit of external aid, they have to take care of themselves. Like in this picture also, at the time of flood, the people are taking care of their children. They are trying to evacuate from the place which is which is affected by flood, and you can see that no external or government help has yet reached. So it is very important for each one of us to be aware with the basic disaster planning or preparedness for disaster. Then everyone should be having a disaster management kit at their home, and get a proper training as far as the first aid uh, items have to be used, or aids have to be used in case of a disaster. Then here in this picture you can see that people, uh, they are helping each other along with the police. uh, I think it is a case of a terror attack or an earthquake, where people along with the government, they are helping. Here also you can see that the small boys and their parents, they are helping or working towards the cleaning of the disaster which has taken place in this area. They're trying to clean and make a space. No external help also is seen in this picture. Then at home, it is very important to plan an evacuation plan for at the time of fire or terror attack or earthquake, flood. So it's very important for the family to sit together and discuss the first aid kit which is kept at home, which are the evacuation ways, exit ways, which has to be followed at the time of disaster. And besides this, an awareness can also go a long way in mitigating disaster. For example, now in hotels which you were a regular visitor earlier, so there are various signs which are put at different places in a hotel, so it's very important for us to follow them. So the management of the hotel could help save a lot of lives in eventuality of a fire if it abides by government regulations or emergency exits, escape routes, and fire extinguishers. So these are the escape routes which on every floor and every corner of the hotel it is put. Then in a war-prone area, the residents of the war zone may construct underground bunkers that can protect them from airstrikes by enemy of the nation. People should also uh, uh, in the living in the tsunami prone areas or cyclone prone areas, they may plant more trees or create tsunami walls along the coastline to prevent extensive damage. Most important in today's context, it would be greatly helpful if people are alert to the suspicious elements such as the terrorists who are capable of launching attacks and causing man-made disaster. So then there are UN agencies, then there are non-governmental organizations like the NGOs. And in India, the one NGO is known as Rapid Response, which is the first disaster relief NGO in India, and it responds to major disaster within 14 hours of the event. All donation of rapid response are 50% tax exempt under section 80G because it works immediately, and wherever a disaster happens, they are ones to come immediately. Then they give sustainable support for the victims of the natural disasters, and these are the peoples who are driven by their own passion for to save the victims of the natural disasters. Then there is another one, the NGO, which is known as CARE, and it also supports the victims of the natural uh, disasters, and the survivors of the natural disasters also, they are taken care by this organization. So in this way, we have covered the whole chapter on disaster management, and I don't know